Like many growth stocks this year, Roku is taking a break, but the streaming video platform had a huge run in 2020, surging roughly 150%. The TV advertising landscape is continuing to evolve and content remains king. So how is Roku positioned for the future? Well, Roku CFO Steve Louden is here with all the details. Thanks so much for joining me today, Steve.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So the pandemic certainly fueled an increase in TV watching, and Roku reported 18.3 billion hours of streaming in the most recent quarter, up nearly 50%. Some huge numbers there. So with so much time spent on the platform, what's the strategy for growth of monetization on a per user basis?
Yeah, and it's been a lot of strong growth. We've been growing robustly for a long time, even before the pandemic hit, but certainly the pandemic has accelerated a lot of the trends that were underway in the shift to streaming. You know, in terms of the monetization side, I mean, that is the third phase of our business model. So really, you know, we've been working on growing scale of the platform, then driving engagement. You mentioned the streaming hours growing roughly 50%. And then the average revenue per user has been growing up very nicely as well. In fact, we just hit a record of ARPU on a trailing 12 months basis in the last quarter. Really, that's driven by a couple different categories. One is the move of advertising over to streaming from traditional linear TV, and our advertising business has been benefiting from those advertisers following the viewership. And the fact that you can have targeted, measurable advertising on Roku that you haven't been able to have traditionally on TV, as well as the fact that on the content distribution side, we've seen a lot of great growth there. There's a lot of new services for consumers. A lot of the legacy media companies are really leaning into streaming. And you know, this is all predicated on our belief that all TV will be streamed, and you're seeing more and more evidence of that. And that's great for us, both in terms of building scale and driving increased monetization over time.
We certainly are seeing that indeed. Now let's dig a little deeper into the advertising business. That's hugely critical to the company's success. So what exactly is driving the trends that you're seeing in the advertising space? And maybe you can give us an example of how that's coming to life in the business.
Yeah, sure. So certainly on streaming that, you know, like I said, we believe that all TV will be streamed. The corollary to that, in our view, is that all TV advertising will be streamed. And so really the advertisers are following the viewers over, and they're frankly a bit behind in terms of the amount of advertising budget that is being spent versus the amount of time of TV watching that is being streamed. But for the most part, we're getting more and more budget. And really Roku's been leading that in terms of OTT advertising with things like our OneView platform, where you can, you know, really leverage the first party consumer relationship we have with a large streaming audience. You can have targeted advertising, which drives higher ROI. And then one of the things that's very important to the Roku offering and is differentiated is the Roku channel. So that is built on a foundation of free ad-supported television, and our reach is getting bigger and bigger. We reach households with, you know, an estimated 70 million people in that. The Roku channel on the platform is growing roughly twice as fast as the platform itself. And that's really one of the core areas of free ad-supported TV out there.
So on that line of thought with the Roku channel, I mean, we're always hearing about how content is king. Netflix and Amazon, Apple, among others, are just spending rapidly on their original content. So talk to us about what Roku is doing on the original content or programming front. You know, we have Quibi and some other things that you guys are doing.
Yeah, so certainly we've had a lot of good, exciting announcements this year in terms of the content side of the business. And really, it is framed within the context of the Roku channel and the free ad-supported TV model. But the Roku channel has grown to such scale, and it's growing very fast. You know, it doubled year over year. And so that allows us, within that free ad-supported model that we've had, you know, since we started the Roku channel about 3.5 years ago, to spend more on content. And we have more flexibility. So we've done things like, you know, we purchased the content distribution rights for Quibi, and those are the core of our Roku originals that we just launched. In fact, you know, we had our National Streaming Day holiday here a couple of weeks ago, and so that was the launch day of Roku Originals. So that's very exciting. Only found on the Roku channel. We also acquired This Old House, you know, so that has the top couple shows in the home improvement category. And so that's something that you can find elsewhere, but also on the Roku channel. So, for us, it's really exciting because this extra scale allows us more flexibility to source types of content and contents in different ways than what we were able to when we were smaller. But really, the content licensing will still be the backbone of the Roku channel, like we've done. But we have new ways of doing that. And then we have some other exciting announcements around that too, of the newly acquired Roku brand studio. And so we just basically just launching today the Roku Recommends show, where each week we'll have kind of the top 5 shows that, based on our content recommendation algorithms, we're kind of highlighting some gems of content that people may not have seen, but that'll be on the Roku channel and other places in our UI. So I'm pretty excited about that as well.
So lots going on there. And then you also mentioned the distribution side of the business. It seems like a lot of negotiations that need to happen with that side. And right now, Roku doesn't have YouTube TV on the platform, but walk us through how the distribution side of Roku's business works with all the different legacy platforms that you're saying have new apps coming on as well.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, yeah, we have a very wide breadth of content, and our aspiration is to have all content that's relevant for consumers. And so we have thousands and thousands of apps. So yes, we're always kind of negotiating or renewing the apps, and the vast majority of those are you never hear about. But for the most part, we've been very successful at having a great breadth of content, and then also using our first party consumer relationship, recommending the right content to folks in things like the Roku channel. So certainly, our revenue model is based on the fact that we can help these content publishers create a lot of value, and then we have an economic interest that's aligned with them in terms of subscription or transactional video rev shares or ad inventory. And so, we're really, kind of focused on the consumer experience, and then hopefully driving, positive results for our our content publishers, and then, gaining revenue in the meantime.
Now, Roku is, of course, a dominant player in this space, but you're not without some stiff competition. So what do you think are Roku's competitive advantages here in this evolving streaming TV landscape?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, certainly we've been competing successfully with a lot of big names for years. And really what set us apart is, frankly, the kind of leading belief and innovative belief years ago that all TV was going to be streamed. And then Anthony, our founder, and the early team, built a purpose-built operating system that to this day has significant advantages, primarily around being low cost, designing to run on cheaper hardware, which is really important in the TV space, and to keep prices low on the player space. And then the fact that we've designed the UI and the platform itself to just be accessible to all types of folks that aren't necessarily consumer or tech savvy. So we get a lot of both consumer and professional reviewer awards as a result that we have such great content, but it's so easy to use, and the entry point is so cheap. So these are a lot of things that have been fundamental for us. The fact increasingly that we're experts in free ad-supported TV is really important. I think that's an area where a lot of the industry kind of didn't pay enough attention to that years ago. And that's increasingly important, especially as streaming moves more international as well.
And looking ahead to the future, what areas do you think provide the biggest opportunity for Roku to deliver that strong growth moving forward? Are you looking more to be acquisitive? What exactly is going to drive the growth in the future?
Yeah, I think there's, first and foremost, a massive opportunity remaining in streaming. I mean, we are still very early days in what we've branded the streaming decade. And so we think that the US is definitely ahead of the rest of the world in terms of the shift to streaming. But when you think about the monetization, even in the US, it's still very early days. And so there's a lot of opportunity in the US remaining. But then increasingly, the streaming shift is an international phenomenon. We think all TV will be streamed globally. And so international, even though it's maybe a bit behind the US, is going to be increasingly important. And we're very heartened to see that the same differentiators that made us successful in the US market port nicely to international markets that we're in. And we look forward to kind of further expansion in international markets over time.
Well, Roku sure has seen some impressive growth. So best of luck to you moving forward. And thanks so much for your time today, Steve.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Hi there. Thanks so much for watching Investing Strategies on our YouTube channel. If you want more executive interviews and analysis of key trends to watch, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date.